Can you refill my coffee?
Okay. I love that I was just recording and filming that. That'll be how
You better not.
We need to give people an accurate representation.
that was too bossy. And I don't usually do that.
Don't you tell them you don't usually.
Okay. I'm going to check this video before you put it on here.
All right, good morning, everybody. As you can see, I'm here with my mother, and I've been pretty excited about doing this podcast for a while now, and now that I'm home and I'm doing the trailer build with Noah, now I'm with my mom, and we can sit down and chat about a few different topics. One of the main reasons why I felt this was important to do, not only because you guys all love my mother, and not only because we have fun together and she's been in the vlogs multiple times, but also because I do have a large part of my audience that is older than me, and I think a lot of people tend to slip into these like parental roles almost, and a lot of the comments or questions that I'll get is kind of along the lines of like, is your mom always worried about you? How do you make sure that, how does she know that you're safe? How could your mom let you do something so unsafe? There's a lot of misconceptions and questions about that. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to sit down with mom and she can just talk about her experiences. And if you are new here, something also important to mention is that I'm not the only nomadic child. So there are two other boys. One lives on a sailboat and one lives, kind of in a truck, will soon be trailer.
What would you like to know?
What you should start with, just so people can get to know you a little bit, because there were a few questions about this, but people want to kind of know where you have been at / currently are as far as like adventure and free spirit and that kind of stuff. So maybe talk a little bit about where that's played out in your life. Because it's not like us kids are the only ones that love to adventure. Like, you guys instilled that in us. You know what I mean?
Okay. So originally, I'm from Connecticut, and I did move out here to Wisconsin when I graduated from high school. And so I did venture out here on a whim and just kind of drove out in my little Volkswagen Bug. I had gotten an interview just off the cuff, I guess. I came out to visit my cousin in Wisconsin and ended up traveling up to Door County where I live now. Never even heard about it before. But I did fall in love with the area. I ended up getting a teaching job up here and thought I would maybe do that for a year just for the fun of it. And ended up then meeting Linnea's father, my husband, Steve, and he was from here and I ended up staying. I did work up in Canada in a canoe area, and that was something that was kind of out in the wild. Canoeing and flying in seaplanes with young youth and doing some wilderness camping for a few summers. So I did do that.
And squid jigging?
Yep, I learned how to squid jig out there on the ocean. So, as part of Outward Bound, did all those kinds of things. But in my family, my mom and dad always took us all camping. There were 4 of us siblings, and we couldn't really afford a lot of other vacations, but camping was definitely within our economic capabilities, right? And so we would go and camp and stuff. So I knew about camping and backpacking and all those things growing up. Steve really didn't do a lot of camping growing up, but we wanted to make sure we did that with our kids. So most of all of our summers and vacations were just going out and exploring, heading to the state parks or the wild areas, catching frogs, doing those kinds of hands-on, getting muddy and just experiencing, what nature provides. And so we did that with our kids. I should mention along the way, we just really tried to live as simply as we could.
Yeah, I think that will definitely give people some insight as to kind of how seamless the lifestyle is for us kids. Like, all of us can very easily jump into a tent for a few weeks at a time, if we needed to or wanted to, or like living in a very small space or living simply being outdoors. It wasn't like this huge shift in our life because we've been living that way for such a long time. Like, granted, yeah, we lived in a house with furniture and running water and all of that stuff, but there was such an emphasis on living simply in the backcountry or portaging out or fishing, all of that stuff that just came so.
As a family,
so
we did
much.
a lot of things on the water. We would head up to the Boundary Waters or Sylvania Wilderness and take our canoes and kayaks. So we had to limit the things that we brought because there was a lot of portaging. So you wanted to keep it really simple and light. So, we had the equipment. As my kids grew up, when they hit a certain age, like when they were 18, all of the kids got a tent. And the reason was so that then they would have their tent and they'd have their home and they could leave home and be, still have their shelter with them. As the years went by.
It was like a way to be like, okay, now you're out of the house. Here's your house.
You've got your space. You can leave. You're 18. You can leave now if you want.
And I just went on a camping trip last week in the backcountry, still using that 2-person tent that I got when I was 18.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody had that. And then also, by the time they were all out of college, they had all of their camping stuff. But they were just able to be self-sufficient out in the camping and out in the backcountry. It was just something that we were able to provide them. No, they didn't get a car or any of those things. But they did get a tent.
So now that you guys have heard from my mother a little bit about her and about our childhood, I'm just going to jump right into questions. So I took these questions from Instagram. What I've been doing for these podcasts is just putting up those question boxes on my story and gathering basically just what people want to know and what types of topics people want me to discuss. And people sent in some really fun and interesting questions, and I'm excited for you to share some of your 2 cents, because I also know that there's a good chunk of these people that are parents as well. Let's just jump right into this one. What's the number one thing that scares your mom about you being nomadic? Because you do worry, right?
I do worry. I try not to worry in the regard of, like, I know worrying doesn't do any good unless there's action behind it. So when I do worry, I really do have to do some self-talk. And I have to say, okay, you're worrying, you're not sleeping. What good is it doing? Are you going to do something about it? And then I have to talk myself out of saying, no, there's nothing that I'm going to do. There's nothing that I can do. And so then I can really talk myself out of not worrying. That is really the truth.
I know, and okay. I believe it. And it's like, do you really still lose sleep over me?
I have to, yes, sometimes I do. But I'm much better. Yeah. Oh, I'm so much better. Yeah. When people are when people were at college and they were doing their own thing and I didn't know what was going on, that was the best. But when I know, and I want to know where people are going, I like it when you say, okay, I'm going here, I'm going there. I think the thing that scares me more is not about you being in the backcountry, and it's not about, the cougar and the bear. It's about other people. That's what scares me. Taking advantage or hunting you. That scares me. That does scare me, because that is is a real thing. And I know that it's a real thing. At the same time, I also know, as an adventurer myself, and my parents would worry about me. In my family, I was curious and wanting to do things and going and taking those opportunities and exploring. And I'm grateful for that, very grateful for that they provided that independence, and allowed me, I guess. So I know that I've been in that spot and just always felt like I'm okay, nothing's going to bother me, but I also know that was naivety, I was naive. And so knowing that, I think you are so much stronger and more aware of what's around you, and I think you are smart. I mean, I think you're smart being out in the wilderness, and I think you're also aware of what's around you more than I ever was at that time. And also Akila is with you, and I think she could sense if something's not right, you know.
I'm curious though, would that be different if I was living downtown Chicago?
If you were in the city. No.
I mean, so like if I was like, let's say I had a job and I was living downtown Chicago, not being nomadic in my van.
That
like,
would worry me as
well.
well.
It would worry you as well.
Yes, especially if you were walking the streets at night, going around those dark corners, weird people around there. But I also know people could hang out in the woods and in the backcountry. And it's a different type of person, you know. But I think it is real similar, yes. Okay. And I would worry the same. And I really have been working all of my life of not worrying where it keeps me from living my life.
Yeah.
But it crosses my mind all the time. I go through each one of the kids, what they're doing. And then it's like, Gretchen, just sit down and go for a run. And that puts things in perspective for me.
Do those things don't cross your mind with the boys?
They do.
They do. So are
not
you...
so much. Okay. All right. I'll be honest. I do worry about you as a woman more than the boys.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
I worry about different things with them, you know, but more of your physical safety. And I do worry about you, you know, being attacked sexually. You know, I do. But I like that you lift weights. And also that, you know, you have your weapons of choice. I do like that. You know, it's like, okay, she's got to, you know how to use them.
This phrase, weapons of choice, Mom has just like taken and ran with it, because there was like an Instagram story I did at one point. Somebody asked me what my like night routine is, which I don't tell people because I don't want people to know how I lock my van. I don't want people to know all of the weapons that I do have in there. And so I used the phrase, you know, I like usually choose a weapon of choice for the evening to have beside my bed. And now Mom just uses that phrase all the time when she talks about my safety. Make sure you have your weapon of choice and this weapon of choice that.
And I also do, you know, worry about like you parking in the desert and your vehicle there is all by itself. And then I have to get that out of my mind because that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And it won't do any good for me to come up with those scenarios. But
yeah. How do I say this? Like, I know that you worry. I also know that you're in a place where you can like also just live your life. And I think some of the questions, and this might sound harsh, but some questions that I get, it's almost like people ask me like how could you do this and make your parents worry or make your mom worry? Where I know that my mom worries, and I love my mom so much. Like, I love you so much, and I will never not do something because I know she'll worry. Like,
and I'm glad about
like,
that.
I'm not gonna not live my life and not live and do the things that I want to because I'm like, oh, my mom's probably losing sleep over this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love you, but I will never stop living my life to appease your worry. And I know that you don't expect that, but that's just the truth.
A lot. No, yeah. No, that's my deal.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for my worrying.
Yeah.
You know, that should never be a roadblock. No, I would be.
Yeah.
I would feel really bad if it ever was.
I know
it's like,
that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear that there's never an expectation either. You're not like, oh, Lenny, I'm so worried about you. Like, don't you dare park in the middle of the desert alone, because you know that I would be miserable if I couldn't park in the desert alone. You know? Anything you want to add, or should I move on to the next question?
No, I just think, I'm really fortunate in that I've had the opportunity to spend some time with you doing some of your exploring and seeing where you stay when you sleep on the mesa, and being there. I think that puts it a little bit at rest, and just meeting some of the people that you have met on your journey. So I think that has helped me understand more of the community that you spend your time in with.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And that parallels an idea that I often return to when I'm discussing these things on social media. And it's the idea of, like, when you don't understand, things feel a lot scarier. Mm-hmm. And so I think bringing you into this life in however the ways that we've done that, like, you actually getting an insider view of, like, where I stay or what the lifestyle is, or going to Gutted, like, the more that you understand about it, the easier it is for you to maybe, like, accept what I'm doing, know what I'm doing. Like, you can visualize where I am or the people I'm with.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then also just see the support system that many of you have for each other. Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Going to Gutted was definitely an eye-opener. I am so glad I went there. I would have not been able to visualize it, or you could have talked about it till you were blue in the face, mm-hmm. and it would not have affected me like actually being there and seeing it and just watching the interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came to that. Okay, this is an interesting one, because I don't actually remember this. What was your reaction when I said that I was going to live in a van? Do you remember?
What was my reaction?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Okay, it was just like, okay, that's the next thing. Okay, she's going to go live in a van. I know, like, you were researching and looking into them. Was Dad living then?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Or no. Because I started...
He would have chosen
to live in a van next to me. He would have been like, cool, I'll build a van too. And then we can all travel.
No, we had the camper.
Yeah. I know. I think about that all the time, that, like, I will be in places and think,
yeah, Dad would have liked this.
They would have been right next to me.
Yeah, yeah.
We probably would have been caravanning all around the country. But for you, the fact that I'm like, I'm just going to live in this thing, there was just like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever.
Right. And I think because I heard about other people doing it, and I remember the first time, I think it was one of Noah's friends that I met, and they said, oh, she lives in a van. It's like, what? Meaning like, they're homeless. Yeah, like, do they need some help? You know what I mean? Or whatever. It's like, no, that's just right. It's like, okay, well, maybe I could, I thinking that they're homeless, until I understood, no, like, that is a choice, and that's just like a lifestyle. So I kind of heard about that lifestyle a little bit before. I think me telling, like, your aunts and uncles and whatever, oh, yeah, Linnea, she's bought a van, she's going to go live in the van. And that was a little bit harder, because knowing that they did not understand, I at least understood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even now I think, okay, I'm letting my kids, well, it's not me letting, you're going to do what you want anyway.
Yeah,
and
sure
I'm just supporting your lifestyle, and just kind of, I'll go along for the ride.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch them. Okay, like, all right, so they're going to do this. Like, what about the other part of life? Are they not doing that? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like, no, this is what they're choosing to do. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways of living, and this is the way that they're choosing, and I'm definitely supporting that, because I lived my life the way I wanted, and I still am, and it's your turn.
I really love that. It's like having a partner that really has your back. Like, I have witnessed and been in partnerships where it feels like that partner might be saying things about you behind your back, or might be like not fully supporting a silly decision that you've made or whatever. And it feels like I never question, like, I never think that you're talking to other people or family and saying like, oh, she's doing this van thing. What is she doing? Like, I don't know, is she going to have kids? I'm worried about X, Y, and Z. You're just like, yep, this is what she's doing, and I support it, and she's adventuring and whatever. And it feels like really having my back in that. Like, that is such a comforting, like, connecting experience. You know what I mean?
I do.
Okay. What would you say to a parent who doesn't understand this lifestyle?
Go on YouTube and Instagram and follow some van people. Which I end up doing now. Of course, I followed you, and then these other things would pop up, and then I went to Gutted, and I met a few other people, and I met people my age, which was really fun, going and and talking with them and looking at their rig and how they've got their bed, and it's like, wow, I could really do this. But anyway, I guess I would just say, be open, keep your mind open, and just find and listen to other people's stories. And I think that could really open up your mind to the way that lifestyle is. Mm-hmm. And also go and join them, live with them for a little bit, see if they'll share their bed with you for a night or two. And I think that then you would understand.
So this person asks, how did you let go or detach from your children and let them adventure?
Yeah. As far as detaching and letting them adventure.
Are you ever detached?
That's what I was thinking. Well, actually more, I think I go with them, because you kind of share what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I'm not there physically, but I'm there, thinking about what you're doing when you're going fly fishing, when you're up in Montana, when Josiah's on his boat, just kind of following and kind of being part of the adventure from afar. And again, telling myself they're living their life. Yay. When are they coming back?
Yay.
No, that they're, and that, I'm always so proud of them. It's like, wow, it is a risk. You're heading out there and you're doing something new, and it is a risk. And I applaud them each for doing those things and going out, because you can try some things, and if you don't like it, then you don't do it, or you try something new. And that's all about what life is, and learning and growing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always like, I'm always amazed that you're all willing to do that. Mm-hmm. And because I do think it makes you a better person to have those experiences and seeing the world in different areas. Mm-hmm. And same with traveling abroad. It's all eye-opening, and it's just part of life.
Mm-hmm. What Mom just described makes me think of how, like, us living our lives parallel our childhood, because, like, you had mentioned, okay, they're out there living their life, yay. Like, yes, we're out there living and having all these different experiences, and that's how we lived our childhood, though, too. Like, you and Dad there was never an expectation to do or love a certain thing. There was an expectation to experience multiple things. And when we had each of those experiences, it didn't matter whether we were like, yeah, now I want to do this thing forever, or like, nah, that's not my thing. You're like, okay, cool. They had that experience. They made their own choice. Moving on to the next experience. This is an interesting one. It's more just about you.
Yeah.
What is one of the biggest challenges you've faced, and how did you overcome it? Do you want to talk about that?
Biggest challenge. I get a lot of growth from challenges. I almost like to find challenges. Even I'm a trail runner, and my favorite trail runs is when I am in the elements. Like, it might be snowing, it might be windy and cold and rainy. So when I do a longer trail run, I almost rise to that. It's like, whoa, this is really hard, and I just love that. But when I think about, I guess my most recent challenge, my husband got killed instantly in a car accident, and I think one of the biggest challenges for me was having to call all of my children and letting them know that their dad had just been killed. And so that was a major challenge, and I wanted to make sure that it was me who called each of them. So that was a major challenge. And I think about that and the strength that I had to pull to do that, but I knew immediately that is what I needed to do. And I did it. And then the challenge after that is just knowing that they've lost the support of their father and me, my husband, and knowing that I could not replace that, and I couldn't be a father too, that I had to be me and provide, what I could, and just knowing that I can't be the dad too, because he of course was his own person, and we balanced each other well, but just knowing, the challenge of not being able to provide that for my kids, and that I had to be enough that's all that I could do. Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge. Mm-hmm. And it still is a challenge, and I have to remind myself, about that, that I can't be both of us. I have to be me. Mm-hmm. But I do say, okay, what would Steve do? Okay, he would say, Gretchen, just let it be. When I would worry about something, just let it be, And so I do that often. I'll say, okay, yep, all right, I hear you, just let it be. Sit down, have coffee, read, have that cup of tea, and just, his presence is always around. We are feeling it and get, support, even though he's not here, just by knowing, what he would probably be saying or doing.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try not to... We're going to move on before I start crying. That's really what's going to happen. Do you feel like you didn't do anything that you wanted to do before you had kids?
Nope. I felt I did everything I wanted.
All right.
But having kids is something that I wanted, and also I wanted to explore and do all of those things with my kids. But it's not like I stopped doing my things. I included all of my kids in the things that we were doing. So camping, I wanted to share that and do that with my children, to give them those experiences. So it wasn't just about, okay, now I stop. No, that it was part of the plan. Mm-hmm. It enhanced everything. Watching everybody catching frogs on the river edge, mm-hmm. and seeing the excitement, and camping, and having everybody build fires with sticks, and yeah. Swimming nude in the water. I just love that. It was so that was so important in my life. It would be nothing without all of my kids. And Steve.
Are you ready to be a grandma?
Of course.
She's been ready for years, folks.
I am ready to be a grandma.
And she's going to be one soon.
In about 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm. Not by me. Just to make that clear. That was not
my
an announcement.
My son Luke and his wife Lucy are pregnant and should be in October.
Mm-hmm. Another October baby to add to the family. Was Linnea always getting into trouble as a kid?
No,
I was a very good kid.
Linnea did not get into trouble.
I hated getting into trouble. I did everything possible to not be in trouble.
I
wish wasn't the case. I wish I would have gotten into trouble.
Linnea always loved animals, so I guess if she was going to get in trouble about something, it would be about her having cats in her room that she was saving, or baby birds in a box, or oh, can I keep this creature? And so there was a lot of that growing up, saving of the animals. And down to mice, I guess, too. And
I loved my mice.
And so that became a little issue. Cats.
But you guys you guys were never like, no, you can't try to hatch that egg. You let me try.
Oh, yeah.
You let me try to save the birds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Out of all
and
the
little
animals,
rabbits. Mm-hmm.
And the little rabbits. But out of all of them, I think there were only 2 that ever survived.
Yeah.
I had a very close relationship with death as a little girl, and it was very hard for me. I was only successful when Dad helped. The only time that I was successful was when Dad helped with the possums and then the cats. So this one is, what are your top 3 values and why?
These are some thought-provoking questions.
I know, they're very good at answering or asking questions.
I think having integrity, respecting others, keeping the balance with respecting of myself and others, and keeping my boundaries clear, and also making sure that I'm, for myself, not taking more than I'm giving. Leave the world a better place, and I know that's really a lot of cliche, but I do really believe that.
How did you enjoy Iceland?
Oh, I thought that was really good. I'm going to go back sometime in like maybe June and July. I really missed not seeing all the birds migrating up through Iceland and see what's there, and all the nesting on the cliffs. I want to go back and see all the puffins and just see how it is when there's not so much snow and ice. Although I'm so glad we went then, because I would not have been able to see all those icebergs and the snow, and I really enjoyed seeing that, and being in the geothermal waters. It's going to it feels so different, I'm sure, in November in that cold temperature than being there in the summer. So I enjoyed being in the van with you and having those close quarters.
Did you actually enjoy being
I
in
did.
the close
This is the
quarters?
challenge on there. Yes, we would definitely get a bigger van next time if we ever did it again.
Yeah. The
So,
small van was tough.
It was tough, but it was okay. It was good.
Yeah.
We made it work. I don't think I could have been in that small area with anybody else but you.
For those of you that don't know, we do have Iceland videos up on my channel. I vlogged the adventure. We were in Iceland for 2 weeks. Oh, it was like 2.5-ish weeks. We had reserved a camper van, and the van was small, like minivan size.
It was like a minivan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was a minivan.
Yeah, it was a minivan.
So if you can picture a minivan, the back part being a little bed, but also having some counters with a camping stove and a
Very
little
simple.
sink. Yeah, but that took part of that back. So Linnea and I were able to put down and sleep in the back. One of us could lay on the back and went on their back, but then the other person had to be on their side. And you kind of only could shift when each other shifted. So it was very tight. You had to definitely be with somebody who didn't mind your body close to them. So, Linnea, you did very well.
You did very well, too.
Oh, thank you. And another challenge, a big challenge of this minivan, is that it was standard. And I used to always drive a
Oh my
standard.
gosh, I forgot about that.
It was standard
A
driving.
stick shift,
Stick shift. And it's like, oh, I got this. I used to, drive a Volkswagen. I learned on a standard. No big deal. I can get right back into it. Well, that was not the case. I was the one who knew how to drive a standard. I told her I got this, but I didn't quite have it. It didn't work like my Volkswagen. And after about the first 2 or 3 hours driving in Iceland, I ended up pulling over and saying, Linnea, I can't do this.
I am honestly shocked we didn't get into an accident. When we were going through that first city and you're stalling out on those roundabouts, I was like, we're going to get in a crash. Like, we're not getting out of here.
Yeah, and I thought it would just come, and it just wasn't coming. And now, I knew what the problem was afterwards, but part of it was there was so much white because there was a lot of snow, and my depth perception on those little roads with all the snow coming, it was really hard. And eventually we ended up pulling over, and Linnea just relearned. She used to drive tractor standard,
I just
farm
pulled up
tractors.
a YouTube video.
Yep, and she just learned on the side of these Icelandic hills. And then she took over, and then I just said, okay, you'd be the driver, I'll take care of the gas, and that worked out pretty good.
During that trip, or I should say the vlogs, like posting vlogs, there were multiple people that were like, oh my gosh, I could never do this with my mom. And like, we had a wonderful time, and there were challenges that we had to work through for sure. I think a big challenge of that was like, I was still working, with the job that I do and how I make money, I'm pretty much constantly working. I very rarely can just take 2 full weeks off. So, mom wasn't working and I was working, and that was a little stressful for me. And we had the dynamic of like me being very used to doing my own thing all the time, making my own decisions, my own travels, living in a van. And all of a sudden I have my mother with me, which is amazing. And also she's my mother. So she falls back into that mothering role. So like navigating those different dynamics and traveling together, which we haven't done a lot of just long-term travel, just you and I. And so I want to just make it clear that it wasn't all just like rainbows and butterflies. There were rainbows and butterflies, and also there were challenges of us traveling together, which was a really cool thing at the end of the day to figure out, I think.
I think when we went to Washington Island camping, I think that was kind of nice in that.
Oh, yeah.
When we went
Washington
to, because we
Island,
each had our own backpack, our own tent, and we just took care of our own things. And so then we would, cook and have, because that was a nice little camping trip.
That was an amazing camping
just
trip.
Going there. So we had our own stuff with us that we were responsible for. We didn't. So if we would have shared a tent, that would have been different. But we know how to do that.
Yeah.
We know how to camp and backpack together. Going down Havasu Falls.
Yeah.
We had our own stuff. I had my own tent. You had your own tent. And backpacking down, we went at our own pace. We just rendezvoused, and that was really nice.
That's
and
true.
those were some longer trips.
Yeah, for sure.
And more strenuous. So I think traveling together, I think it is really good to have that physical part and like the backpacking heavy work.
And to have conversations about it like this, where we can openly be like, stop mothering me. And you can be like, we need to do more active things,
Yeah.
Because I think that is a unique part about our family in general, having the ability to have conversations for the most part.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It really helps, I think, connect us all and know that we're good sharing and we accept that opinions and different ways of looking at things, and that it's okay, that we trust that we can do that.
I think that you kind of talked about it before, but the last one that kind of stuck out to me was like tips for parents on supporting your child even when you're scared.
Those are good questions.
I know.
I think it's important to breathe.
Yeah.
I do. I think, I think it's important just to take a big breath and realize that yes, there is fear, but on the other side of that fear is where growth happens.
For you or for the kids?
Both.
For you mean?
For both. For both. Fear that you might have for your kids, but then also knowing that they're going to go and do that, and you're growing from allowing them to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So really it's for both, because fear can really stop you from being open-minded and knowing that things are out there. I don't know. But also that fear is also a real thing that you have to listen to. Fear can be a life-saving emotion that you have to listen to. And knowing when it's stopping you or it's something that is like that you need to handle and deal with. So I don't have any.
And that can be a hard distinction.
It is. I think it's a hard distinction.
So when you're scared for your children, you just breathe through it.
Kind of like, giving birth.
Oh, God.
Just
Lamaze breathing.
I know you talk
about that a lot.
I do that. I use that in my life.
Well, everybody, I think we are going to stop here. we answered a lot of questions and a lot of different topics and kind of veered off into our own little discussions about various things. I hope you all enjoyed hearing from Mom.
Feel free to contact me.
That might be a dangerous offer, actually, to make. You might have a lot of people in emails. Yeah, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Morning Nomad. Anything else you want to end with?
No, I love you.
I love you too, Mama. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Okay, cool.
More coffee?
I
just
have just
kidding.
had 2 cups and now I'm going to be jazzed.